This is Bleav in Georgia Dawgs podcast on the Bleav Podcast Network.
Scored a touchdown earlier on a direct snap. Now it's Michelle's turn, running all the way. Gets to the edge. Sonny Michel will send the Dawgs home to the championship game.
53.5-yard drive near hash, kick right, snap, hold, kick is away, it's reaching, and it is good, good, good. Hot Pod does it. All right, Hot Pod.
Dawgs with an up and out, wide open. Touchdown. Israel 2.
All right, welcome in. It is a very special edition of the Bleav in Georgia Dawgs podcast on the Bleav Podcast Network. Also, you can see me right here on Brinks TV. Follow us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you find your podcast. You can check us out. If you want all of our information, it is scrolling down underneath. As you can see at this moment, I am solo, but my help is on the way, so you don't have to hear me droll on for about 50 minutes. But joining me here in a little while is Israel Troop, and we have a very special guest. That will be a surprise. So, and he is actually in the waiting room right now. But again, we are the Bleav in Georgia Dawgs podcast. We are presented by betonline.ag. It's that time of year again. It is week 1 of college football, and all eyes are now turning to football as teams are back on the gridiron to start the football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. You can get all the updated odds, props, contests, including online's biggest $500,000 NFL mega contest and the world's largest $200,000 NFL Survivor contest, which is open now at BetOnline. So head to the website, or you can use your mobile device to sign up today. Receive your 100% welcome bonus. Take advantage of the opening day super promo, which means you can make a bet on Thursday, September 9th, the season opener between the Super Bowl champ Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowboys. And if you lose, your wager will be refunded up to $25 for new customers only when signing up and using the promo code NFL100. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. I see him. He is here. It is Dayne Young from UGAsports.com. And Israel's going to be joining us here in a little bit. Dayne, how's it going, man? It's been a while.
It has been, but the season's here, and excited to chat with you as always, Corey. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely, man. And at Dayne Young on Twitter is a great follow, and all of the stuff that they have to offer on UGAsports.com. Dayne, that Kirk Herbstreit article and spot on y'all's podcast was outstanding. So I got to give you tip of the cap on that one.
I appreciate that. I mean, so much of the credit has to go to head coach Jim Donnan and his vast network of connections. I joke with him that eventually I'm going to, have to bring in my heavy hitters as well, but my friends are probably not as big name as some of his. But you look at some of the talent that we've had come through our feed, whether on our YouTube channel or our podcast feed, however people consume our stuff. It's Kirk Herbstreit and Paul Feinbaum, Houston Nutt, Bruce Feldman. We had Dabo Swinney the month before the game ahead of Georgia. I mean, the fact that you get Kirk Herbstreit for half an hour the week of Georgia Clemson, it's pretty crazy. So, our audience has responded well to it. I think some of the Georgia fans were wanting Kirk to be a little bit more complimentary of Georgia, but the fact is this is a loaded Clemson team too. So look, I get it. There's enough compliments to go around on both sides, and someone's got to win and someone's got to lose.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're loaded too. There's a reason why they're in the top 5 and they're national
perpetually forever. Yeah.
Perpetually forever. They're national championship contenders now and forever. They're going to continue to dominate the ACC as they always have. And I'm not going to say it doesn't matter that they lose Trevor Lawrence, but DJ Uiagalelei is, and I'm pretty sure I butchered that.
Uiagalelei. I've really worked hard.
Ungula. You've been practicing, haven't you?
Ui Unga Lele.
Ui Unga Lele.
So then say it quick. Ui Unga Lele.
Ui Unga Lele.
Ui Unga Lele. Yeah.
Unga Lele. Okay.
Look, we all got Tonga Valoa, right? So
we'll Tonga Valoa. Yeah. It'll happen. It'll happen for me. Just give it time. By the time we get to the national championship game and the rematch between Georgia and Clemson, I'll have it down. So, big game this weekend. There's a lot of big matchups this weekend. Obviously, Georgia and Clemson headline for this show, but Bama and Miami. We'll talk about that in the pick section of this show. We'll kind of give a brief preview on that. LSU UCLA is a matchup that gets real interesting. LSU Ole Miss. So some good conference games. Tennessee kicks it off this week in a couple of days, actually on Thursday. So I'm actually excited about that.
It could be a bumpy ride. Tennessee in those opening games, man, especially with the talent on its roster. I don't know anything about Bowling Green, but I know Tennessee is prone for early upsets.
Well, Israel and I talked about Bowling Green last week, maybe it was on my SEC After Dark show. I can't remember exactly what show it was, but
that's where Bowling Green belongs, is SEC After Dark.
Yes,
maybe Tennessee too, for that matter.
We looked at their roster. They lost everybody in the transfer portal, so they're just like Tennessee. But the problem is they don't have any talent.
Well, at least we know that they're a real school and not the high school that faked its way into the IMG game.
Well, they're not very far ahead of Bishop Sycamore, so at this point, so they might as well be playing Bishop Sycamore. So that's God Almighty, that's a hilarious story in and of itself. But I can't believe that went down and that was able to. I can't believe they went up against IMG.
They didn't. I mean, they were there, but they didn't really go up against them. They kind of got pushed around out of the way. Most teams are going to look that way against IMG. IMG's got questionable practices on if it's an actual school as well. It's just in the opposite direction of like, are they really doing academics here? Because it appears the priority is not really that.
It's they get the bare minimum. They're like the soccer academies, but for football.
Yeah.
Soccer academies, they basically just they have a traveling tutor, and then that's just kind of how they roll.
Which, I mean, if you look at some of the recent IMG guys, I don't really see a ton of like superstar NFL kids. So like there's a lot of good college players, but it's definitely not a for sure thing that you go to IMG and then all of a sudden you're a top 10 pick. That track record's not there yet.
Well, it's far from it no matter where you go, because the NFL is the tip of the sword. So I mean, there's no telling. I mean, you could be like Keelan Cole and make a career out of Kentucky Wesleyan, or you can be, obviously Mac Jones, be the third string quarterback two years ago, and now the starter for the Patriots. So you never know.
Did you see my tweet about the Mac Jones thing?
I did not.
Okay. I wanted to ask because I just want to tell the joke again, because obviously Mac Jones is the starter. Cam Newton gets cut. And so Alabama's going to claim another national championship based off of that.
Yes, they probably will. They absolutely will, because he bumped out an Auburn guy too.
Exactly.
That makes it even more special.
That's the Iron Bowl that I guess we're a few months away from it, but that's the NFL Iron Bowl right there.
Yeah, right there you go. I mean, Iron Bowl in August.
3 Alabama NFL starting quarterbacks for week 1.
All on the same roster at one point. That's insane.
All on the same roster, and then if you go running backs, Najee Harris is going to be a starter. Derrick Henry's a starter. Josh Jacobs is a starter. Damian Harris is a starter. So that's 4 off the top of my head, and I may be missing someone.
Yeah, we probably are, but I mean it's insane nonetheless. So, but let's get into this game. Georgia Clemson. Lots of exciting things to talk about, Dane. When it comes to these two teams, the quarterback position being the number one. Herb Street said he's impressed with JT Daniels' decision making. What else about JT Daniels? What else does he bring to the table, do you think?
The main thing is the decision making. He's experienced a lot in football. He's a really bright guy. He's a smart guy. And so I think he'll have command of the offense. Having a full year under Todd Monken, working in that system together, I think is only beneficial for everyone. In terms of his arm, I think the main thing is that he can make the downfield throws. He's got every bit of arm that you need for downfield passing, which has been questionable for Georgia. You asked me all about the good things. That's probably most of the good things there is that he's going to keep the offense in a positive position, and he can take the deep shot and potentially strike on those when they're available. So that's the upside with JT Daniels.
Do you think his deep ball is going to be better now that his knee is fully 100%?
I don't know that. I mean, yeah, you need your lower body to push off of, but his knee was good enough to do that last year. He didn't have a problem. Yeah, it was more about accuracy overthrew some guys. I would think more times with these receivers probably has helped that. The main thing with JT Daniels is going to be protecting the football. So if there's a concern, it's protecting the ball, and then a lot of that stems from his lack of mobility. And so, you think of the traditional – it's not traditional, I guess, right, except for recent years, but the RPO game, he's not a threat to run it there. So it's going to be really quick decisions where I'm either going to hand this off or I'm dumping it off to the quickest tight end or receiver that I can, because I know I'm not a running threat, and that stalls out the offense from there. I mean, you know way more about schematic football than I do, but you take out the running threat in the run pass option, that takes out a third of the possible play, and that's where college football is right now. So he is limited in that aspect. So he's going to have to be, I think, against a team like Clemson, and I'd say the same against an Alabama or an Ohio State. He's going to have to be virtually perfect with his deep balls, and he cannot put it in harm's way. That's the main thing that I'm afraid of for him, because if you go back to those USC days where most of his game film is from, that was a problem at USC. It wasn't at Georgia. I just think that's small sample size against not the best opponents.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, again, just pocket mobility, pocket awareness, and just being able to get the ball out quickly on time is going to be something that he's going to have to focus on. We know the running game is going to be great. You have a four-headed monster there. But part of the RPO game that's very popular is using the tight end position, one which Georgia took a hit on with Darnell Washington. What's the update on Darnell and Fitzpatrick and Bowers? Are they going to be able to kind of fill that void?
Fitzpatrick is going to play, which is big for Georgia. That's probably the biggest news of the week, I would say. He had a couple injuries in the offseason, a foot sprain, ankle sprain, somewhere in there that he's been trying to overcome. Mainly for blocking purposes, he was needed because Darnell Washington, Kirby says he's healing and he's fine. He's not going to play. You don't have the surgery that he had so close to the season and be ready to play week one. I'm actually thinking he's probably about a month away. It could be a little sooner, depends on his recovery, but I don't know if you want to rush it with a big guy like him, especially with the way the schedule sets up. You need him ready for Florida and Auburn.
The stretch run, because that's going to be an important stretch of games. Yeah, no, you're right on that.
Absolutely. And so then you're looking at Georgia, which was really deep at tight end, especially when Gilbert came and he's not with the team right now. All of a sudden, it's down to John Fitzpatrick and a true freshman in Brock Bowers. And Bowers has created a reputation. We haven't seen anything from it. So I would keep those expectations low against a team like Clemson. I'm sure he can contribute, but John Fitzpatrick and blocking and knowing where he needs to be and helping on backside stuff, he's going to be JT Daniels' best friend. Absolutely.
And going up against this Clemson defense, what are some of their biggest problems that they pose? I mean, I know Breezy and Skalski are two guys that can really, really make things hard and difficult from the defensive front perspective. But like when you look at this Clemson defense, like what really besides those two, obviously, what really stands out to you on this?
I mean, I think it starts with defensive line. The other guy that I would throw in there is Miles Murphy. And, Georgia's likely going with Cedric Van Pran at center with Warren Erickson having a snap with his opposite hand. And so that's a bit of a concern, I would think. Van Pran did play some last year, mostly in mop-up time. But you're saying, hey, man, first big-time start, here you go. Here's Clemson's defensive line. It's only one of the best 2 or 3 in the sport. But the opposite's also true. That Clemson's got interior offensive line struggles, and there's Jordan Davis on the other side. Good luck with that.
Not there's only Jordan Davis, but you have Wyatt and Travon Walker and all those.
Jalen Carter gets in there.
Carter and God Almighty, we can keep going with the list. It's insane. But what about the secondary for Clemson? Is it going to be? Are we going to have shots over the top with them?
Ohio State did. Notre Dame did. I don't see why Georgia couldn't. If anything, I would say it's an experienced secondary, but it's an experienced secondary that gave up a ton of yards and points to good offenses. and Georgia has the potential to have a good offense. This is going to come down to two main things. Can Daniels protect the ball? And if that's the case, is Georgia aggressive on offense? Because you're not going to beat Clemson scoring 24 points. You're not going to beat Clemson scoring 2 offensive touchdowns like Georgia did in the Peach Bowl against Cincinnati. And that was with George Pickens and Darnell Washington.
Right.
I know a lot of other pieces were gone by that point, especially in the offensive line. But Georgia's going to have to score points here. I mean, you got to think high 30s or 40s in games like this. Any recent top 5 games say that level of offense is required. And that puts a lot on JT Daniels. That puts a lot on Georgia's receivers. And that also puts a lot on the secondaries. And Clemson has shown that even though it's experienced, they have problems as well in overall coverage. And I don't know that that's a shot against Clemson. I just think that's a status of how dynamic offenses have gotten. And Georgia may have lagged a bit behind in some of that. But look, if you're taking the next step and you're going to make the playoff this year, you have to do that. You have to be able to be a downfield threat.
Now, outside of Pickens, is this receiving core fully functional now?
For the most part, I think they would feel better if Kearis Jackson had another couple of weeks, though I do expect him to play. If for some reason he's played, that knee bothers him at all, you're looking at a guy like Ladd McConkey maybe stepping in there in the slot and maybe some punt return stuff. I think they're comfortable with Arian Smith in spots, but probably not with the totality of the offense. So in a perfect world, which I think it's as close to can be, you're going to have 3 receivers on the field most of the time, and that's going to be Jermaine Burton and Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint and Kearis Jackson. Beyond that, we'll have to see if it's Arian Smith. Does AD Mitchell pop his way in there for a couple of plays?
I mean, from everything I've read, I think AD is he's got to be the guy, right?
Maybe. I mean, I do think a guy like McConkey could be really useful against Clemson. I mean, it's almost, having that slot guy that's got good hands, and he's a good athlete too. I don't want to rob him of that, just frankly because he's the wide receiver. So you paint him as a Renfro or Edelman. He's a good athlete. You don't get to that point without being that.
Right.
The thing I worry about with a guy like Mitchell is he's never blocked in college before. At least McConkey has had a year. He's a redshirt freshman, right? AD Mitchell's had spring and summer, and then now it's fall. So he's blocked in practice, but to me, that may set him up for a little bit of failure if he's got to help in some of the run game blocking. And that's where I think, look, people have asked me, who's got to play well to win this game? And the obvious answer is JT Daniel. But the second piece of that, I think, is Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint, because I think he's the key to Georgia's offense. He is the receiver that must have that breakout. Hey, I can show flashes of being a 1st or 2nd round pick in my future. And this is the kind of game where that can get started. We saw a bit of that against Florida at the beginning of last season, but it was so short-lived because of his injury.
Yeah, I mean, that was such a brutal injury. And I can't, some of the videos we saw over the summer of him working out and making some of these giant one-handed catches were absolutely outstanding. So, but I hate to cut my point short, but joining us is the man, the myth, and the legend, the Mr. Israel Troop, man. Israel coming fresh off of a coaches meeting and fresh off a 36-0 thrashing of Appling County, man. What's up?
What's going on, man? Actually, the Appling game was 42-6 but this week it was Shaw.
Oh, okay.
So we got a little revenge on somebody from the whipping we took the week before.
Nice.
Indians on Friday, so a little bit extra.
There you go. Well, the storm is coming, right? So,
believe it.
Well, we're talking offensive football here. We're talking a position that you may or may not be familiar with. Oh yeah, you are, the wide receiver position. So, we're talking about a young lad named Ladd McConkey, actually, Israel. As Dayne mentioned him as being a possible playmaker, but this is going to be a big key to this game, right?
Oh yeah, I mean the receiver play this week is going to be
Uh-oh.
we all know Brett Biddle's defense is going to be tough. They're going to bring pressure. A ball out, and our receivers getting, got me.
I think so. Sort of, maybe.
Heard Brent Venables.
Yeah, Brent Venables must have cut down your cell phone tower there.
Yeah.
He heard you talking about
it.
Hear
me now? We got a storm coming through down here. Yeah, we got a storm coming through down here, so it probably cut me off a little bit.
And it's not just a T-shirt.
The receiver play is going to be really important this week. And this storm is definitely coming here. So, but yeah, it's going to be good. I think if we get some playmakers getting the ball, JT gets the ball out, we get some great O-line play. Is going to be the key to winning this football game. I think we'll be fine.
And Sawyer's at left tackle, confirmed, right, to start this game?
Yeah, what we were told was that Sawyer is probably going to be at left tackle, and then you'll have Van Pran at center. Though I will say, I would expect that if there is a quick issue with the center of Georgia's line, let's say Breezy and Murphy and company, you can give Van Pran trouble. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a quick shift to get Sawyer in there as the experienced guy and then go with someone else on the outside, just because that's the fastest path to the quarterback, and JT Daniels has to stay upright. If he's on the ground in this game, then Georgia will not be victorious.
Yeah, or if the backs can't get going either, right? So I'm really excited about Kendall Milton this year. I'm really excited to see kind of what kind of game he has. We know Zamir is going to be good. We know Cook's going to be good and dynamic. I think this offense can support 3 dynamic running backs and a good dynamic passing game. I think we're that electric this year, and even up to 4 as Dayne is flashing up. He's giving me the 4.
Dude, you're missing Kenny McIntosh. That guy's a playmaker.
Yes, he is. He is indeed. So 4 great running backs are going to have great seasons for the Dawgs, man. I'm excited about that. You just made my day, Dayne. I didn't give him enough credit. So, yeah, Kenny McIntosh.
Let me ask Israel, like, if you have that many running backs, and Georgia's in a unique position where I think they all kind of specialize in something different. If you could package it together into one person, you have a top 5 pick in the NFL. But when you have different skill sets with those guys, as a play caller, how do you decide who to use where and when?
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure Munkin has a thing on his call sheet to what they do well. So if it's 3rd and 1, you actually know who's going in the ball. Zamir's getting the ball. If it's a swing pass, Cook's going to get the ball. And then you got a stable. You got Dejon Edwards, you got McIntosh, you got all those guys who specialize in something different. So it's basically about putting them in the right situations. Each coordinator, I know Corey does too, has a set of plays to where each quarterback does something well. So like I said, if it's 3rd and 1, 4th and inches, Zamir's getting the ball. Everybody in the stadium knows he's getting the ball. Now you can flex Cook out. Now you got Zamir and Cook in the game. Now you got Kenny McIntosh and Cook and Zamir in the game. So now you got so many different formations, so there are different ways to get all those guys in the game. And Coach McGee does a great job playing those guys and rotating them. So it wouldn't surprise me to, see all 5 of them play Saturday if everything goes in our favor.
Yeah, I mean, I really like it. If you're asking me on my play call sheet, I'm putting James Cook on the seam. I'm giving him jet sweeps. I run him a couple times inside the tackle just to keep him honest, but I'm running outside zone with him, RPO stuff, putting him out wide even and getting him matched up. I mean, there's so many creative things you can do with James Cook. He is the most versatile weapon that we have. I really like the screen game with McIntosh. And I like the in between the tackles and off tackle stuff with Milton and Zamir. I think Milton can do a little bit of everything, and Kenny McIntosh can kind of do a little bit of everything as well. So those guys are more all around better backs than Cook and Zamir. I think Zamir is kind of the bruiser. Like if we get in the 4-minute drill, I'm definitely heavy dose of Zamir White and Kendall Milton. If we're in hurry up mode, if we're in 2-minute, or if it's just a situation where pedals to the metal and we're going, I'm going James Cook, McIntosh, those guys. And so, just depending on the situation, but I mean, honestly, all of them can do different things. I mean, they're all good at, but where my favorite my favorite weapon to use would be James Cook because of the versatility that he has in the run game on the perimeter, off tackle, and in the passing game as well. He can be that slot receiver that you need to kind of fill a void until some of those other guys get comfortable.
I think one thing to consider too is
that's what I use my little scat back for.
Like when you look at LSU and Alabama in the recent years, and look, those are legendary college offenses. They got a lead through the air early, and then they laid the hammer down with the power running game. And so as much as it's going to be tempting to lean on Zamir White early because you know that that's a safe thing to do, saving him for the fourth quarter with a lead is probably Georgia's best chance once you get late in the game, because he doesn't fumble the ball. He's going to get 3 yards. He's going to keep you near the chains rather than wearing him out early in the game.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing there. And just coming out pedal to the floor. I mean, I think when you look at how Kirby is kind of designed these scrimmages and the G-Day game and all the stuff that we see leading up to it, there's about 1.5 million hints that he's going to just say, not that he doesn't already say that, but he's got to be like, has his hand around the offense a little bit, and squeezing it a little bit and saying, okay, we got to be conservative, play defense and win. But all these clues lately are pointing to, okay, Monken, put that pedal down to the floor and let's roll. Do you see any of that, Dayne? Or Israel? I mean, I know Israel, you and I have talked about this ad nauseum, but Dayne, do you see any of that? Do you see any of those clues?
Man, I definitely see it.
Dayne, do you see it?
I see it enough to where now, we're getting to the point of the Alabama deal.
That's good.
I see some potential of it, but, I think Georgia fans as a whole need to kind of see it happen before. I think there's some fear deep down in the soul of like Georgia gets conservative in big games to keep it close and try to win with defense and the power running game. And that's Georgia's identity for a long, long time. But it's also one reason Georgia hasn't quite been able to get where it wants to get to in the last 4 or 5 years. And so I see that potential being there. And I do think that Todd Monken has that in his repertoire. I think that's what he wants to do. I think what everyone needs to really understand, though, is that when it comes time to make a call, it's Kirby's team. Kirby's going to make that call. So where is Kirby philosophically and what he wants to do in those situations? And I'm not saying he's been wrong in previous times. Like last year, the quarterback situation was so wild. I think Georgia was smart to be conservative because you don't, at least get as far as they did without that. But this year it should be a little bit different with the stability at quarterback, a deeper room at wide receiver. I wouldn't necessarily say there's more talent than last year just based on injuries, but it's at least a deeper position right now. So what happens when Kirby needs to make a call? Does he let Monken do what he wants to do in that spot? Or I think, as you guys would attest to, a head coach makes those calls. And whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent, you disagree, head coach. That's their decision in that moment. It's their team. They do what they want to do.
Exactly. And I hope, my hope and my gut instinct tells me that he's going to be a little more aggressive because he's seen it the last 2 years and he's not dumb. So, and he might be a little stubborn, but he's not dumb.
But I mean, I guess what I'm saying is we saw in real time Nick Saban make this philosophical shift. I mean, it happened 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, Derrick Henry, when he left, for a reason, Alabama changed with Jalen Hurts and Tua, and it's something Saban did not want to do. He would have preferred to be safer with the football, don't put it at risk. And Tua Tagovailoa was a turnover risk for sure, but it worked out for Alabama because of the immense talent, both with he and at wide receiver, and then just great coaching from Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian. And, that shift happened for Nick Saban. And if he can do that, then Kirby can do that too. The question is, has he? And I guess we'll all find out together.
Now, defensively for Georgia, coming into this game, of course, loaded in the front seven. I'm excited across the board with the linebacking position with Adam Anderson and Nakobe Dean and Nolan Smith and Quay Walker and, you name the linebackers. I'm excited to see them. You look at the secondary. I'm actually excited to see if these guys are going to just cut loose and just play ball. I think they will. I think with this front seven, they're going to be able to. And I think with this secondary, they get a little pressure taken off of them because of Jordan Davis and that front seven.
Is that a question for me or
just go out there and let
yeah,
the
I mean,
play.
it's a you know, what do you
he's the man
think?
with the plan.
Yeah, what do you think? Well, I mean, you know, is that accurate?
The position I'm concerned about on defense is star. And I say this because if you go back to last season, who was the starter? Star Mark Webb. He goes to the NFL early. He could have come back and been a super senior, chose not to. So I guess he didn't go early, but he didn't take the opportunity to come back. Tyreek Stevenson was his backup. Well, Tyreek Stevenson is now at Miami. All right, so you're down to who's next. They bring in Tyke Smith to have a competition with Latavius Brini. From everything we were told, Brini was probably going to win that competition anyway, although it was going to be pretty tight to the end of camp. Now with Tyke Smith out, it's Brini's spot. I'm a little bit concerned about coverage skills for Latavius Brini. I've seen him in run pursuit and sideline to sideline. He's an athlete, so I'm not worried about that. But I'm a bit concerned with coverage skills there because if you go back to the last 6 months of Georgia, he's now the third or fourth option at that position. Yeah. That's a little scary. I'm not concerned about Darion Kendrick. He'll be hyped for this game. He's played in big games. I'm not concerned for Keely Ringo because he's such a great athlete. I expect he'll get burned on something. We'll see if Clemson takes advantage of it. But, I mean, he hasn't played full-time college football yet other than against Georgia. And so he's not going to be perfect in this game. There'll be an opportunity there. So, you know, I think for Georgia's defense, one reason you're hearing about Adam Anderson at star on running downs is because maybe Latavius, like that's a position of concern. And if you have a position of depth at linebacker and one of those guys can help play star sometimes, you know, all of a sudden you're like, is Anderson kind of like Ogletree a little bit from about a decade ago? Maybe so. That'd be great for Georgia.
That would be, right, Israel? I mean, I think it's you get a dynamic playmaker like that in space. I mean, it makes it difficult. I know. I look at my call sheet.
I can't believe that was almost a decade ago with Ogletree. Ogletree, that really was almost 10 years ago. Yeah, dog.
Man, that's when I was in college.
I said,
I graduated in 2011.
Yeah, me too. Have y'all seen, like I said, we talked about this last week. Have you seen Adam Anderson? Oh my God. That kid, I mean, he's grown up. I mean, when you think about putting a linebacker at star, that means he can run, he can hit, and he can cover. You know, so when you're talking about doing things like that, that just shows you just how dynamic this kid is.
Yeah, I mean,
and he's been extra dedicated too, because I would say his first 2 years at Georgia, there was no way he could be an every down player because he could not put on weight. He was way too thin for SEC football for every down kind of thing. And he has worked on his body, and he's still not where he wants to be weight wise in terms of like pro potential. I think he'd rather put on another 15 or 20 pounds, but if he's going to be running out there at star, maybe it's better that he's not. You know, the main thing is he strong enough physically, and he's worked on that core to do that, to be able to do it as Ojulari did last year, and then more because Ojulari didn't drop back in coverage very much.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be fun to kind of see how they use him throughout the course of the night. You know, first down, second down, third down long, stuff like that situationally. What does that look like for Adam Anderson? What does that look like for even Nolan Smith? What does that look like for Brini? What does it look like for those defensive front guys? So I'm interested to see that, Dayne, and how the progression of how situationally they're going to use some of these guys. I mean, because Kirby and Lanning are known to rotate guys in. So,
and with Anderson, don't make the mistake now. He's a pass rusher, and he's one of the best in the country, one of the best that Georgia's had in a while. So if there's a chance that the quarterback can be rushed, he's going to have his hand in the ground, and he's going to be going quick. So that, you know, we can talk about all this star stuff, and that's cool he's able to do it. That's not what he's on that defense for. He's going for sacks, and that's going to be required against a guy. I mean, you see Uiagalelei. I mean, there's
Uiagalelei.
If you look at that guy, he's big. He can move. We need to see more of it before this is one of the best quarterbacks in college football history. So I'm not trying to give him these expectations, but like just in terms of body size and arm, there's some Cam Newton potential in that guy.
There is. And they're going to have to zero in on him. They're going to have to gang tackle this guy. So any surprises on the defense? Anybody that might not be on anybody's radar that you think is going to get a lot of time, a lot of show?
I mean, I think the surprises is that some of the longtime backups are now starters, right? So, like, just in the totality of the program, Christopher Smith relying on him, Latavius Brini relying on him. in the era of the transfer portal, those are guys that you probably expect to be at, North Texas or Troy or something like that. And they stuck around and they've been rewarded for that. So maybe that's not necessarily a surprise. If you're looking for like names that you don't hear a lot about, I think you're probably looking at the third and fourth corners. If something were to happen there, Clemson really decides to spread the field. And that's probably another one of those guys, Amir Speed, getting some play out there. If you're looking beyond that, you're probably getting into Jalen Kimber. And then one of the true freshmen that at least has been making a name for himself in practice. And I'm always wary of that for first game stuff, maybe later in the year. But Kamari Lassiter, that's a name that we've heard just as a really athletic skill guy. Yeah. I don't think there's going to be a lot of surprises. And I think if there are surprises, that probably means things weren't going the way you want to, because everything for this Clemson game is pretty darn planned out by this point.
Absolutely. Well, let's take a look at the game as a whole before we get into our selections for this weekend. I'll start with you, Israel. Overall, how do you see this game playing out?
If we can keep JT upright and we can score and keep scoring, I don't see this as a blowout. I'm looking at maybe 38-24, 37-24, something like that. I feel like we have more weapons than they do right now. We'll see, once the game starts, because you got a lot of guys who are talented, but haven't had that SEC, ACC big game experience. Game day is going to be there. So, I mean, that's a big thing. New Jersey's different atmosphere. You're not playing at Sanford Stadium. You're not playing at Clemson. You're playing at an NFL stadium now. So does that come into effect? So if we play our ball, I see it, 38-24, something like that. I do see it, being a two-score game if we play like we're supposed to. Now, that's predicated on how the game goes. Can our defense stop them? Can we stop DJ from throwing the ball downfield? Can we stop the run? They're going to come out. They're going to run power and counter and some power read at you, a little bit of zone. They're going to try to throw the ball downfield. So everything goes right, maybe 38-31. We'll beat by touchdown for sure.
All right, Dayne, how do you see it playing out?
I did a data analysis article over at ugasports.com. I think it was last week and maybe in the week before. And what I did is I went and looked back at the games between top 5 teams over the last 4 seasons. It happens more frequently than it used to because of the playoff, obviously. So there have been 21 games in the last 4 seasons between teams that are both ranked in the top 5. And I looked at the quarterbacks in those games and where they eventually were drafted in the NFL draft, a couple of them still in college at this point. As a whole, it's a first-round pick that wins those games, and a guy that's usually like 4th or 5th round pick that loses those games. The only exception to where someone that wasn't a first round pick beat someone that was a first round pick was Jake Fromm in the Rose Bowl against Baker Mayfield. And so it's possible, but it's unlikely that the less talented quarterback, or at least the less consistent quarterback in terms of future NFL standing, is going to win the game. So pretty much the way I broke this down, which team has the quarterback that's more likely to be a future top 5 pick? Which team has the quarterback that's more likely to be the 4th or 5th round project? Mm-hmm. Unfortunately for Georgia, I think you would prefer to have the quarterback situation reversed. And I think Uwe Unglele has more talent. And so to me, history says Clemson has an advantage in this game because it has a more talented quarterback, which means Georgia has more to overcome and will need to be virtually perfect to win the game. So Georgia can win this game. I do not expect Georgia to win this game.
Okay. I think Georgia can. I think Georgia brings a lot more speed than they've had in the past as well. I think that offensively they have a chance to overwhelm Clemson, especially Clemson secondary, with some downfield shots and some jet sweeps and really kind of getting the ball out on the edge and the perimeter. So I think if they can utilize that, if they can protect JT Daniels, I think they're going to have shots down the field. I think this front seven is going to be a big factor in overcoming this quarterback deficit that you speak of. I think that they have some true disruptors along that defensive line, somebody that can push the pocket from the middle. 2 people, I think, that can push the pocket from the middle, and Devontae Wyatt and of course Jordan Davis. Then you have Nolan Smith and Adam Anderson coming off the edges, and don't discount the other guys as the 4 techniques, and don't discount the aggressiveness that with this the talent of this front 7 that you're going to be able to have with some quarterback pressure. So I think that's going to be a huge factor there. Can you disrupt the timing of Big Cinco? If you can, you're going to be successful. And I think this defense has the talent to do so. And I think it's going to be a close game because Clemson's also going to have the ability to disrupt some of the timing of JT Daniels. So quick passing, being able to get the ball out on the edge. I don't think you're going to have much on the inside, but being able to win the perimeter with screens, jet sweeps, things like that, I think is going to be the biggest difference for Georgia. And I think they're going to win 42-38. I think it's going to be one of those back and forth games. Georgia scores late to take the lead. This is going to be one of those exciting football games down the stretch. There's not really going to be a loser. It's just going to be one team that just happens to be behind in the score at the end of the game. And if they had slightly more time, they would win. So
to that point too, though, real fast, there's a lot of hype in this game, and it's because of the first game of the year, top 5 teams, rivals historically. The winner and loser of this game doesn't mean a whole lot in terms of the season, so to speak. Now, it may for individual teams if they don't respond well to the loss. I get that. Or if they get the big head and don't play like in practice like they should from there. So, like, from the psychological standpoint, absolutely. I'm not saying it doesn't matter. What I'm saying is each team can afford a loss and maybe another along the way is if things break the right way and they win their conferences at the end of it. So, it's a big game. But I wouldn't necessarily say that it's like pivotal for playoff standing or anything.
No, I think it's pivotal for a confidence standpoint. I think teams can gain a lot of confidence from a win. But I think these coaches, Dabo and Kirby, are both good enough to not let a loss derail the season. So that's my prediction. I'm saying Georgia 42-38 over Clemson. This is going to be a barn burner. So some exciting news that we have. Our podcast is partnering with playactionpools.com this season to bring you some interactive fun to this sport that we love the most. You'll be able to get in on the action with our playactionpools.com football pick'em challenge, which guess what? It is open to everyone. So Dayne, you can run on back to ujsports.com and let everybody know. Here's how it works though. So you got to sign up for our contest, Bleav Football Pick'em at playactionpools.com. Then get your picks in each week. We're going to select the 10 highest profile games of the week between NFL and college football. Whoever gets the most picks correct each week will win a pair of electric sunglasses and a pair of DC shoes. So again, go to playactionpools.com, sign up for the contest Bleav. That's BLEAV Football Pick'em. And if you plan on hosting your own football contests, go to playactionpools.com today. They've got Survivor Pick'em as well, and a cool sportsbook style concept called Build Your Bankroll. So Play Action Pools, your new home for all your office sports pools. Very, very exciting. So I'm going to join in on that. I'm going to get me some new kicks, guys. So that's gonna... But y'all want to pick some games?
Let's do it.
Let's pick some games. All right. We're going to start This one out of conference is actually a really interesting spread. This is a Friday night game. Virginia Tech hosting North Carolina. Tech is 5-point underdogs at home. Dayne, I'm going to start with you. Who you got?
Give me UNC in the points. Experienced quarterback, Heisman guy, experienced head coach and staff. Shout out to John Lilly over at UNC, former Georgia coach, and from anyone that I've ever talked to that has been around that guy says he is the kind of guy you want coaching your kids. So for that reason alone, I'll be rooting for North Carolina, and I think they'll cover.
All right,
Most
Israel?
definitely. I'm going with North Carolina too. Funny story about John Lilly. We were going to, I forget where we were going to, and I'm like, Coach, what you listen to? Coach Lilly's listening to Tupac on the plane where we're going. So I'm like, okay, I can rock with this guy. That's my man. So Lily Dog, I'm with you guys. They got Sam Howell. If you've seen this young man play, he can throw it and he can run it. So I'm taking North Carolina.
Lily still has an active group text with tight ends from Georgia.
Hey, that's my man. Lily
cool.
Dog. That's my guy.
How can you not go with a guy that has the taste good enough to listen to Tupac? So give me the Tar Heels minus 5.5. All right, first SEC game of the year. Tennessee hosting Bowling Green. Is Tennessee 35.5 points better than anybody?
No. Bowling Green. I'll take the points.
Yeah,
taking Bowling Green.
That's a lot of points, man. That is a lot of points. So
Bowling Green ain't bad now. They're not bad. They're not a bad football team.
No, they're not.
But they're not 35 points less than Tennessee, though.
No, not at all. Not at all. Penn State, Wisconsin. That's an interesting one. Wisconsin minus 5.5, the home favorites. That's an 11 a.m. kick on Saturday. I like the Badgers here. I think Graham Mertz is one of my favorite quarterbacks outside of the SEC. So I'm going to take the Badgers here.
I'll also go with the Badgers, and I do believe that they're a better team, but also I always see that Madison is up there with Athens in terms of best college towns in the country, and I've never experienced it, so I need to get to Madison and do some comparison shopping.
There you go.
Man, no matter what time it is in Wisconsin, then people are going to be up and partying, baby. So, yeah, I'm taking Wisconsin because guess what? You got to stop that guy from running the football. If you can't do it, it's going to be a long night. Well, long day now.
Long morning, I should say, because it's 11 a.m. Central. Bama, Miami. Miami is 19-point underdogs. It's a neutral site. Over under is 61.5. How do you guys see it, Dayne? I'll start with you.
I'm going to go with the Canes and the points, and I know that's a little bit of a zig for Bama, but Derek King, experienced quarterback. I think he'll probably manage the offense pretty well. Do you know that he is older than Tua Tagovailoa, and he's still in college, and Tua is going to his second year of pros, which is just crazy to think about in terms of ages. But then also, new quarterback for Bama, first stage for him. I think he'll do great, but I'll take Miami. But just Bama's going to win the game, but Miami's going to keep it closer than what that point spread is.
Israel,
I'm going to take Miami. Don't sleep on Miami now. That offense is pretty good now. I think they're kind of figuring everything out from that tumultuous season a couple of years ago. So I'm liking Miami to keep it close. I think Bama pulls it out just because it's Bama. But I think Miami keeps it close, throughout the whole entire game.
Yeah, I think Bama's going to win it. I think it's going to be a 2-touchdown. I think it's going to be a 14 to 17 point game. Bama in Bama's favor. Bama's just replacing too much. Usually in an opener, in a national TV neutral site opener, I would take Bama to roll, like to double up the point spread, but not this year. They're replacing too much. So I'm going to take the points in Miami.
Scary thing about Bama, though, this year is from what I've heard from the people that I talk to, their defense is probably better than it's been in the last 3 years. So Bama may not be in as many shootouts because the defense, especially linebackers, are stout.
Yeah. Henry To'oTo'o is not even the best one on the field, and that's scary. We just picked Georgia Clemson. That's actually Clemson is 3-point favorites in Charlotte there, so we already picked them. I'm picking Georgia +3. So is Israel, and it looks like Dayne, you went with Clemson. Let's look at LSU, UCLA. UCLA, they're getting a lot of love. In the Pac-12, they are actually picked to win the Pac-12 South Division. A lot of people like them to do that with all the experience they have coming back and the returning starters. They host LSU at the Rose Bowl. LSU is 3-point favorites on the road. Israel, I'll start with you, man. How do you see this one?
After watching UCLA last week against Hawaii, now not taking anything from Hawaii, but UCLA looked really good. They can run the football, they can throw the football. And now we all know how Chip Kelly is. Chip Kelly now has guys he's recruited. He's kind of established what he wants at UCLA. And you see they've gotten better. So if LSU comes out like they came out last year, UCLA is going to put a thumping on them. So I'm taking UCLA.
I'm going to go LSU to cover. I think it'll be a close game. LSU has offensive line issues. Some guys transferred out, and I think some got kicked off the team as well.
LSU is 3-point favorites on the road.
Yeah, well, I think that they'll cover that.
You think they'll cover that?
Not by a lot, but I think LSU will cover it. Overall, they have more talent than UCLA. Here's a fun stat for you. I threw this one on Twitter that you probably didn't read as well, Corey. So with the news at South Carolina with their starting quarterback situation, going to the GA turn QB1.
I saw that.
My God.
And then Max Johnson at LSU.
Yeah.
2 SEC starting quarterbacks played at Oconee County High School here in Georgia.
Wow.
In the SEC, only 1 starting quarterback is from the state of Florida. So Oconee County, Georgia, 2, state of Florida, 1 for starting quarterbacks in the SEC. And that's only because Tennessee named their transfer. I think he came from Michigan. They named a Florida native as their starting quarterback. Otherwise, it would have been 0.
Wow.
3 California starting quarterbacks, 3 from Georgia, 2 Mississippi, I think 2 from Texas. And then there's a couple ones down below that. Guy from Connecticut, I think, is at Kentucky, something like that.
Yeah, Will Levis.
Yeah.
That's insane. Only 1 from the state of Florida.
And Oconee County is a 3A school.
Two from basically Athens or Watkinsville. So that's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I'm taking. Well, actually, you know what? And it's very tempting to pick LSU, but I just think their offensive line. That's the part that really scares me. So I think UCLA is going to win and cover at home. It's a West Coast game. Those games are tricky. UCLA, they're rolling right now. This is what a Chip Kelly offense is supposed to look like. So I think you're going to see it again.
Wonky week for LSU too, because they've been in Houston as the hurricane, hit Louisiana. So they've been away from home for a little while.
Yeah. Well, let's look at FSU Notre Dame. FSU is a team that many are saying that are much improved. They host Notre Dame on Sunday. They are 7.5-point underdogs against Notre Dame. How do you see that one playing?
I think Notre Dame's got more talent overall. I know Florida State is trying to make the comeback. I just don't see it happening quite yet. I would say Irish by something around 10 points.
Israel?
He may have popped off with his connection.
So I think the Irish are going to roll. I think it's going to be. This is a tough game to start out with. This has got to be Irish blowout here. So, and then the last one, I'm pretty sure Israel would have picked Notre Dame too. I'm gonna pick for him. Last one, Labor Day night game. Ole Miss hosting Louisville. 11-point favorites for the Rebels. Matt Corral, first team All SEC quarterback, led the conference in passing last year. One of your California natives starting at quarterback. I like the Rebs. I like the Rebs in a blowout here. What do you think, Dane?
I want to know what the over/under is for total points in this game, because
it is 75.5.
Whew.
75.5.
Take the over. If Ole Miss's defense is like it was last year, which I think Lane Kiffin said that's a little bit better. Georgia folks out there, watch out for Otis Reese over there. I think he's in the starting lineup. Leesburg, Georgia, shout out down toward Israel's way.
The guy I host SEC After Dark with, he also hosts the Palmcast, which is on Willis Digital Media. There's a Positively Ole Miss podcast, and that's all that he's like. That's the biggest. That's the player of the year on their defense is Otis Reese. They're really excited about him.
Hey, he's a good athlete, and Georgia probably could have used him based on some of the depth issues that happen. But such is the way in transfer portal life. I think for all it was good for Otis to get there. I agree with you. Ole Miss, I would take them to win in a blowout. Louisville has really fallen hard in recent years, and I think that they thought that they had a coach in Satterfield that would be able to flip it around, and just hasn't happened that way. And I don't know if that's because of whatever Bobby Petrino left over.
It's crazy. Yeah, Satterfield has a project on his hands. So
there's a tweet about Bobby Petrino that came from one of his former Louisville players that I literally think about it about once a month and just giggle to myself. One of his former players, this was during a lot of the racial unrest in America last year. Yeah. He tweeted out, he said, I knew Bobby Petrino wasn't racist because that guy hated everybody.
That's hilarious. That's so true too. That is pure facts.
Well, and I was like, I could totally see that being the case. That like he's the most unapproachable human in all of sports.
Yeah. I mean, when he left the Falcons, he just left a note on everybody's stool saying, "Hey, I'm gone."
Yeah.
Good luck.
Some people are like that. He won a lot of college football games, and there's a lot of people in Arkansas that wishes he didn't get on a motorcycle. So
yeah, I guess
you never know.
A dirt bag. I'm glad. If I'm an Arkansas fan, I'm glad to trade Sam Pittman for him, even if I had to go through Burt Bielema and Chad Morris.
Dude, I don't know if anyone wants to go through Chad Morris. Like there's some selling your soul. I mean, good to get on the other side to Pittman, but yeah, that Chad Morris era was pretty rough.
That pretty rough is being nice about it. But well, Dayne, before we let you go, man, what's coming up on UGA Sports this week?
Full-on game week. So obviously we had our interview with Kirk Herbstreit. That is on our YouTube channel. Just search UGA Sports on YouTube. It's on our podcast feeds as well. UGA Sports Live is that feed wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it may be. And then we get into game week here. Georgia leaves on Friday. We have the game on Saturday. We'll have a watch-along show during the game on that same YouTube channel. So if you want to hear Jim Donnan's real-time commentary about what's going on in the game, we'll have him and myself. And then Brent Rollins from Pro Football Focus will be there as well. Just giving you it's a bit of a Georgia homer broadcast, I would say, in the sense that we talk about Georgia more than we will Clemson. But we give you objective analysis as well. And then on UGAsports.com, probably one of our most popular pieces, Film Don't Lie. It's where we break down what you may have not seen in the game on Saturday. That'll publish sometime on Sunday. So it'll be a busy weekend, but one that we're all looking forward to, just like everyone in the fan base. And, part of this is whether Georgia wins or loses, we have work to do. And our board will be either happy or it will be depressed. And our work continues either way. They're
generally happy being depressed is kind of what I gather from y'all's boards.
There's a fear. I don't know if it's a healthy fear, but there's a fear.
Yeah, well, there's definitely a fear. There's always a fear. There's always somebody out there going, "Oh God, the sky's falling! Oh, we threw an incomplete pass." Oh, no.
It comes with a passion for the sport, and I talk about that sometimes because it's crazy, but we really do have so much love for the people that we do at UGAsports.com. It's the most passionate fan base of Georgia people. They help each other out in all different kinds of ways. They're crazy. Don't get me wrong; it's a ridiculous place, but one that I felt right at home and really fortunate to be there.
You're the actually Roddy's the leader of the pack there. He's the leader of the asylum, I guess, right?
I'm just one of Roddy's minions.
Yeah, you're just his number one henchman, right? Yeah. So, well, Dayne, I appreciate you coming on at Dayne Young. Follow him on Twitter. You can see all of these tweets that I have yet to catch up on. I'm gonna have to go do some catching up myself. UGAsports.com, the best $10 a month you'll spend on a subscription. And of course, you can follow them and you can follow us right here on this show. If you're needing to stack some content, some Georgia content, listen to us, then watch the watch along show. And then after the game, read Film Don't Lie. That would be a great progression of Georgia content right there. And then you can read along with all the interesting stuff that goes on the message board. So you can follow us right here. We are the Bleav in Georgia Dawgs podcast on the Bleav Podcast Network. Also coming to you on video from Brinks TV on our YouTube channel. And we are also simulcast on the Bleav Network YouTube channel as well. Please subscribe, comment, give us a rating. However you like to listen to us, we appreciate it. Again, we can't do it without you sharing. So share it all there. All our social information is scrolling on the bottom. So catch us there. But for Dayne Young and Israel Troop, who I guess his internet connection went down with the storm, I am Corey Burton. This is the Bleav in Georgia Dawgs podcast on the Bleav Podcast Network, presented by betonline.ag and playactionpools.com. So long. See you later. And of course, go Dogs.